Viewer discretion is advised.
I had a bad feeling that something was going to happen that day. I started putting together the Fight the Devil album in 1995, and for the next couple of years recorded demos. So I had a few rough demos and pieces of demos, but the only thing that was finished at the time of my car accident was Fight the Devil, and it was still in my tape player when I got home. I took it and threw it across the room, and I wanted to destroy it, but I couldn't. So I just put it away, and I didn't listen to it for years. I had a lot of people ask me about that song. You know, everybody was curious because they knew it was the song that I was working on at the time of my accident. But I really just didn't want anybody to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want anything to do with Fight the Devil. So a lot of time went by. I had a bad feeling that something was going to happen that day. I didn't see it coming. I just remember hearing my girlfriend say in a voice that I never heard before, "Oh my God." And the next thing I knew, I was lying in a twisted seat. The car was smoking. It wasn't on fire, but just the heat of the collision. You know, the whole thing was just smoking. And, you know, I could see the windshield was cracked. We were hit so hard that the ring holding the seatbelt snapped, and the seatbelt tore open the inside wall of the car like a can opener. The lap portion of the belt held, so, you know, my guts took the brunt of the impact. And I had some pretty horrific bruising and internal injuries from that, but, you know, eventually I recovered. I had a broken collarbone, broken ribs, front and back, torn rotator cuff. Nobody knew that I had brain damage until a few days after the accident. I couldn't do anything for a couple days. I was just dragging myself around, literally. I could hardly move. But finally, after a couple days, I thought I would try and play guitar. You know, I felt, you know, maybe that would cheer me up. And I was horrified to find out that my coordination on my left side had been very severely impaired. I would try and move one finger and it would twitch, or maybe the neighboring finger would twitch, but my coordination was totally fucked. And I made my living as a music teacher and a guitarist. The next 3 years were just a blur of doctors and lawyers. The insurance company would keep sending me to their doctors to try and say that I was well enough to go back to work. And their doctors would say, no, he's not. And that went on for 3 years. And then there were the, you know, the bill collection threats. My insurance company was responsible for the accident. But the hospitals will still send you bills and threaten you, and the threats went on for a good 5 years after the accident. 5 or 6 years it was before I finally stopped getting mail and was able to move forward, you know, and try and forget. For a long time, every time I heard a siren go by, I would cringe, you know, just reliving the ride in the ambulance. So, but, you know, in a way that was great, because after a while in Los Angeles, there's so many fucking sirens that it desensitized me to it, and I got over it. Thank you, Los Angeles. It took a long time to recover. And, you know, they had told me that it was very unlikely I would ever play on stage again. You know, I'm a stubborn son of a bitch. And I just refused to accept it. So, you know, it was just pure stubbornness on my part. You know, it was the worst day of my life. I lost everything I had and was pretty much forced to start over alone at age 30. And it was the best day of my life for all the same reasons. A lot of the early fan mail and the interview questions centered around the car accident and my recovery from that. You know, people found it inspiring that I had overcome something like that. So, in a way, without that car accident, you know, I don't think there would have been nearly the fuss over AngelragE. About a year after the car accident, I did a short set of acoustic songs in my apartment, which was filmed, and that was kind of the beginning of my return. One of those songs actually was Disenchanted, which wound up being one of the songs I released with the Fight the Devil demos on mp3.com.
I could only fool before heaven's gate. Looking back upon my life, I realize I'm too late. When all of my blackest childhood nightmares come true, and all of my heroes shot down or exposed for what they are.
I moved to California in the spring of 2000, and didn't take me long to make friends in the music scene out here. In particular, there was a whole circle of friends that worked together, did shows together, and they all had very theatrical bands, which I loved. I was a huge Dead by Day fan. Oh man. I wound up doing their website, a couple album covers for them, and I played guitar with them for a short time, but it really just it wasn't meant to be. Dead by Day was an influence on AngelragE, because when I joined Dead by Day, I was all excited, you know, I was going to be the lead guitar player for Dead by Day, until Rallis told me that the guitar was a background instrument and that the lead instruments in Dead by Day were the drums and the keyboards. So I found that to be a very interesting concept, and I carried that forward in AngelragE. You'll notice that the drums are very present in the AngelragE songs, and the guitar is not quite as in your face as some of my other stuff that I've done in the past. So that's a direct result from working with Dead by Day. One of the bands that I was hanging out with in Hollywood was Hell's Children, and their lead singer and I became very good friends. The drummer for Hell's Children, interestingly, I would work with later in Lunatics on Parole, and after that, again in AngelragE. So AngelragE and Hell's Children are very much intertwined, our histories. You know, there wouldn't be the present lineup if it wasn't for Hell's Children. At one of the Dead by Day shows, they pulled me up to the stage and cut my throat.
I give up to you.
So afterwards I go in the bathroom, and you know, my shirt's all full of this blood, this sticky, you know, and there's these two guys in the bathroom also covered in blood, drunk as hell and laughing like fools, and we hit it off right away. So we started talking, and it turned out that one of them was the lead singer for a band called Hell's Children.
There's no other place I'd rather be between your legs. Bird of the background watching you. Get out the sea, let it through, bird or die. Nothing stands to me.
We started talking about Dead by Day, and when I mentioned that I did their website, man, he lit up like a Christmas tree. And so then he wanted me to do a website for his band Hell's Children. So we started working together and became very good friends. And I used to hang out at their rehearsals. They shared a lockout with a band called Creepazoid. We would all go and, one band would watch the other play, and then they would switch. And, it was one giant party. Such a good time.
This is Melting Pot.
Two of the songs on Omega are tributes to Muttley. And I think it was a very healing experience for Matt and I to work on those songs together. It was important. I don't know what happened, but it just occurred to me that I should release Fight the Devil after all those years. And I dug up the demos, I used what I could, and I came up with 5 songs that I was able to piece together from what I had, and just put them on mp3.com. I didn't think anybody would care. But I checked a couple days later, and the songs were coming up the charts pretty quickly. All 5 AngelragE songs pushed everything else out of the top 5 on the Christian metal charts on mp3.com, including current singles by Michael Sweet from Stryper and King's X, bands that I had grown up listening to. That was unreal. And they stayed there for a while too.
I was listening to a lot of Christian metal music, and a lot of it was very mainstream, very, well produced sort of stuff. And I was looking for something raw and energetic, and being new to the internet, I discovered a music site called mp3.com, and on it, during my searches, I came across this band called AngelragE, and so I listened to their EP called Fight the Devil, which was just released, and on it was one song called Breakout. Now, the Breakout song was very raw, very energetic. The lyrics really struck a chord with me because I was going through a lot of problems and situations that needed looked into and stuff like that. And there was a lyric in the song where it says, "The past is everywhere you turn," and that lyric just struck a chord with me, and I sort of thought to myself, yes, that is probably part of my problem back then, was that the past was everywhere that I turned. And I needed to get away from that. The bridge, leading up to the bridge of the song, there's a lyric where it says, "You will be free of your chains." So, I knew that I had to break away and loosen those chains. And the chorus is just break out, break out. You know you've got the power. You know it's up to you. So that's basically my thoughts on the song. Those words really struck a chord.
Some of my earliest fan mail came from a very interesting demographic. I have no idea why, but for some reason AngelragE early on appealed to exotic dancers. And one of my earliest fan mail experiences was from a gal that I'll call Melissa, who sent me some very provocative photos of her in and out of official AngelragE apparel. Not only did Melissa model for the website, she also contributed financially to AngelragE early on, at least several $100s to help get us off the ground, which was just incredible commitment on her part. I'll always be grateful to Melissa. She was instrumental in those early days. The Blood Demo. Now there's a chapter in AngelragE history. In September of 2004, my girlfriend and I bought her parents' truck and drove it from Wisconsin back to California and did some sightseeing along the way. We stopped off at Wounded Knee, South Dakota, which is where I was inspired to write the song Raising Hell, and stayed in Colorado in the mountains. It was a beautiful little trip, but all along the way, I was giving out AngelragE CDs and leaving stickers all over the place. Anytime I saw somebody with heavy metal bumper stickers, I would go up and give them a CD, or if I heard somebody playing metal. And I had a ton of these white stickers that were spattered with blood and had the website address and these colorful catchphrases like, "The end is near," and "This is war." And I left them as bookmarks in all the Gideon's Bibles in the hotels that we stayed at. So somebody would open the drawer and go to read the Bible, and they'd see this freaky looking sticker and wonder what the hell it was. I do know that the website traffic went up quite a bit after that little promo tour, so mission accomplished. There's only 25 or 30 of those CDs, so if you have one, hang on to it. 2004 was a very interesting year. I was getting a lot of crazy fan mail, a lot of offers. There was a couple of Christian labels that offered to sign us, and another one that offered distribution and wanted to hook up a European tour, but they were also a Christian label, and I didn't accept any of those offers because I was afraid of getting pigeonholed as a Christian rock band, which we're not. So
it's been said by some that the band is cursed, what with the accidents and things you've had. Do you really believe that?
Well, bad things happen to everybody. You can't. I don't think any one of us is going to sit here and whine and say that life is unfair because bad things happen to everybody. No, I don't think the band's cursed.
No, not at all.
Let me ask this. You might get a laugh out of this or so, but there's been some rumors, and we want to know if there's any truth to that, that you're somehow associated with the occult. Tell us a little bit about that.
No comment.
No comment on that one.
No.
Next question.
What the question is that?
Next question.
Okay.
there's always been an element of duality to just about everything about AngelragE, from the lyrics to the artwork, the logo. One of the earliest controversies was the logo. I started with a simple Old English calligraphy font and just elongated the A and the E into, angel wings was what I was going for. And when I showed it to a couple of my friends, they both were like, wow, that's a devil face. And I was like, oh my God, it is. It's both. So yeah, that wasn't intentional. But once I saw it and realized that it did look like either angel wings or a devil face, depending on how you wanted to see it, I did tweak it, and later Rick Fox tweaked it more to make it, that duality stand out a little more. So yeah, it is supposed to be angel wings or a devil face, but it wasn't intentional in the beginning. It was just a fluke, and then we kind of went with it because, controversy is a beautiful thing. Rick Fox did an amazing job taking that first logo, which was good, and making it great. He really just knocked it out of the park with that,
Another example of the dualistic artistry around AngelragE, often unintentional, is what happened with our official t-shirts. The front had the logo, and the back had Revelation 12, verses 7 through 9, describing the war in heaven. I just had a simple Old English calligraphy font that I broke the verse down into logical phrases and centered. That's it. And I didn't think anything of it until after the shirt was printed. And we were looking at it, and we noticed from a distance it looked like a skull. And that was not intentional.
Although our earliest fans were Christians, not all of them embraced us. And the ones that didn't were very vocal about it. I got hate mail, I got threats. At first I didn't really take it that seriously, but when you have a stranger writing and saying they're going to fucking kill you, it's a little unnerving. There were a few protests in around 2004 when things were starting to get kind of crazy.
And I noticed right away that the press we were getting talked a lot about the car accident and how creepy it was that it happened right after I finished recording the song. So again, the accident, as terrible as it was, actually played a large part in bringing AngelragE to the public's attention, and it took me to more successful places in my life. Another great story about the accident, Larry, which has often been repeated and this one is true, is that for several years after, street lights would go out when I walked underneath them, and then they'd come back on when I was about a block away. Light bulbs and electronic stuff would burn out around me. Some of my friends' cars wouldn't start until I would get out. And it actually became a joke. We would laugh about how much stuff I was burning out. Gradually, over a few years, as I started to find peace in my life again, that phenomenon kind of faded away. But same for true.
We did a couple of interviews for this guy, Trevor Ray, and he was totally hostile, just attacking the band at every turn. But my favorite interview was for metaljet.com. He had a fascinating story. He had been collecting lists of Christian metal and black metal bands. And he had a page on his website where he had this list of black metal bands, and on the other side, the Christian metal bands. And AngelragE was on both sides of the page.
Once Fight the Devil was put on mp3.com, it went to the top, but there has always been a battle over whether or not you were a Christian band. Some have even said that you're a Satanist in disguise trying to deceive Christians, and I find it curious that if people really read your lyrics, there would actually be even a question as to whether or not you're a Christian. However, it is a battle. So what is the verdict? Is AngelragE a Christian band? What is the message of AngelragE? And is there even an agenda behind the lyrics or music?
Well, as you know, Larry, AngelragE has always refused to answer that question in interviews. In fact, if you had sprung that on me a couple of years ago, this interview would be over. I agreed to talk about this because I think it's time to set the record straight. I don't view it as Christian rock. I view AngelragE as more of a soundtrack for the end of the world. I don't consider my music to be a ministry or myself to be a minister at all. I just enjoy the subject matter. But if Christians find my music to be edifying to their life and their own Christian experience, that's awesome. They certainly shouldn't fear the music. I mean, two pastors wrote endorsements on the liner notes of Omega. Pastor James Wilkinson wrote, "God's hand is on this album."
Mm-hmm.
But I feel it's also fair to tell you, I also get emails from Satanists and atheists and all kinds of people who love it too. AngelragE just transcends boundaries. But the truth is, Larry, all I wanted to do was write a really scary, heavy album of songs based on the book of Revelation. I've always been fascinated by theology. I've studied every major religion in the world, and the battle of good versus evil, angels, demons, possession, the Antichrist, end of the world, it just touches such a nerve in people. I thought it would be really fun to do an album of stuff like that. And, it took 5 years to bring that thing together. But by the way, this isn't a new idea at all to me. Black Sabbath did it 30 years ago. Some of their songs were about God and the devil, but you couldn't quite tell where they were coming from.
Exactly.
I found that intriguing. And that was the initial inspiration for the ambiguity aspect. The simple truth is that nearly everything about AngelragE is a double entendre. The logo, the songs, the artwork, everything. It's designed to have more than one meaning, and usually diametrically opposing concepts. I wanted to see how far I could push that, and it's not easy to pull it off.
Exactly.
Let's go back to you. I'm Gar, and it's all about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Happy Halloween. I'm the Hollywood vampire.
In the mid-90s, I actually was a consultant briefly to the PMRC on subliminal media and communication. So, if anything should make AngelragE fans nervous, that would probably be the smoking gun of it. Usually when people are talking about subliminal media in music, they're talking about backmasking, where a lyric will say one thing forward and then something else if you play it backwards. I've never done anything like that in AngelragE or any of my other music. So if you hear anything like that, it's either your imagination or happy coincidence taking. As far as things being hidden, there's a lot of stuff in other languages on Omega. There's a lot of lines that are spoken in Latin, some in Greek. During the exorcism segment in the song Disangelion, where the priest is fighting with the demon is screaming in like 3 different languages, just all thrown together, because I wanted it to be confusing. And like the being was capable of screaming at him and telling him fuck you in multiple languages. During Apertura, there is a low rumbling which sounds like thunder, but it's actually taken from the song Disangelion from the exorcism segment where the priest is fighting with the demon. And it's one of the lines the priest speaks in Latin and just pitched way, way down, slowed down to the point where it's unintelligible and, you barely register it, but it's there. So that could be, honestly called subliminal, but other than that, everything else is pretty much apparent. I'm more about playing with double meanings of words and artwork and leaving, things open to multiple interpretation.
Hello there, headbangers, and welcome to another Metal Minute.
Like most guys in their 20s, I was chasing rock bands from all around the world trying to get the latest music, and little did I know I had world-class metal right in my backyard. Steve Orchard's the guy who gave me my job in radio back in '91, and that's how I became aware of Gar and AngelragE. Those two were buddies. I was doing my own hard rock and metal show on Friday nights, and Steve-O recommended I get in touch with Gar. I heard the music, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe it was being made right here in the UP. Turns out I was the first American DJ to play Fight the Devil on the radio, and I wear that as a badge of honor to this day. The Christian angle never really appealed to me, but the groove and the power of the music is what did it. It clicked with UP metalheads too. They know what they like, and when they hear new metal, they want to know what it is and who it is. When I told people they were from the UP, they were surprised just like I was. To this day, Gar and I have never met in person, but we've become good friends on social media, and I'm just glad AngelragE is back. Love it.
I chose to take it in a darker direction. That was intentional. I really kind of wanted to shake the Christian rock label because it was inaccurate and really becoming a pain in the ass at that point. And I thought, if I put out a really dark, violent album and with this freaky Stone Angel image that I had created, they'll get the drift that it's not Christian rock. But they liked it even more. I was always surprised that people considered it Christian rock. When you look at it, most of the songs are about, the devil, hell, demons, possession, angelic warfare, very dark stuff. There's nothing of the gospel or Jesus in AngelragE.
I mean, serious, that's what it's all about, is scaring people with the Bible.
I just wanted to make a really scary album that was based on, like the Book of Revelation. That end of the world shit just touches such a nerve with people, and especially Christians, that I thought it would be fun to do an album of stuff like that. That's really all it was at first.
I always knew that AngelragE was not Christian rock. I knew the direction AngelragE was going. I was privy to it, but I didn't need to be told. I saw the way things were written, and me being a vocalist, lyricist who writes with wide open metaphors can see it.
I don't feel I've deceived anybody with AngelragE. The lyrics have always been printed out on the CD. If somebody asks me a direct question, I'll answer it,
Well, all of the controversy that has existed has helped to bring the band into the public eye, so to speak. Whether it's about the logo or the stage show or whatever the case may be, the band certainly benefited from it. So why use the persona of archangels? Is that just to help further the mystery of AngelragE, or is it just another way to show and bring the elements of the apocalypse to the people in a way to show them what is in store?
I liked the idea of our identities being shielded somewhat. We all kind of liked that. We thought it was pretty cool. Of course, that totally backfired on me when the original one split up, because then no one knew who was behind AngelragE, who had recorded the music and done all the artwork. And so I was faced with a choice of trying to preserve the mystique or revealing our identities in order to promote my bandmates' new projects. So I chose to do the latter. As for myself, though, I was really heartbroken about it. I finally decided to just kill off my character and start over. And to be honest, the whole idea of being pigeonholed as a Christian rock band was starting to upset me a little bit. Because there were a lot of people then who were not giving it a chance. So I figured I would take it in a darker direction. We were going to do this gnarly Stone Angel makeup. The stage set was a graveyard. The songs, in my opinion, were shockingly violent. I thought this would kind of clarify things a little bit, but you know what? The Christian fans liked it even more. The darker and more questionable I made it, the more they seemed to defend it.
Christian woman, stay away. Christian woman, stay away. Christian woman, stay away. Christian woman, stay away.
I know some people wonder why I am not a Christian anymore, and some people think that it had to do with my car accident, but that's not true at all. After my car accident, I was disabled for 3 years. So I actually intensified my studies in, theology and Christian apologetics. and eventually went into, exegesis and redaction criticism. And that's when it kind of started unraveling. And after, many, many years, I just couldn't believe in it anymore. It's that simple. I studied my way to the point where it became clear that what I was believing in was not real. Ever since I was a kid, I've had a radio station in my head. That's the easiest way to describe it. I hear the songs already finished, just like you would hear music on a radio, and I hurry up and learn them, record them, before I forget them. Sometimes a song will play once, and then it's gone. Sometimes songs play over and over in heavy rotation, and those are the ones that tend to wind up being recorded. There are a couple songs that have haunted me in bits and pieces for years and years. But no, I don't really write my own music. I don't know where AngelragE comes from. I don't even know if AngelragE is intended for human ears. After my car accident, my radio station stopped for a long time. And it was terrifying. The silence, after having music in my head 24 hours a day, all my life, for it to just stop. The silence just was awful. And it was quite a few years before I started hearing music again. Some of the questions I get asked the most about pertain to the original lineup of AngelragE. Why did we break up? What happened to the reunion in 2010 that didn't end up coming off? And is there any chance that it could still happen? We had this kind of pretty boy image. We all had this waist-length hair, and the fact that we were anonymous and went by the names of the four archangels, a lot of people found that to be compelling. And then there was all the controversy around the artwork and what it meant, the lyrics. A lot of people don't realize that the original lineup is not the original lineup. There was another lineup that was never mentioned in the press because it was really only on paper. We never got together and rehearsed. My original choice for lead singer was a guy named Brad Linton from back home. He and I kind of played in the same circles with our respective bands, but we never wound up working together.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. Tonight, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home.
When I put together AngelragE, Brad was the first person I talked to. Unfortunately, by the time Fight the Devil hit on mp3.com, he was already married with children and running a very successful karaoke business. So he was pretty well settled in, and it wasn't feasible for him to move to LA. There were composite pictures released on the website, but the band was never even ever in the same room together. At some point, it became clear that I was going to need to find musicians from LA,
Gar is a pretty damn good singer, but I know it's hard to sing and play guitar with his shredding ability. So, anyway, Gar found Steve Braun. Hell of a singer. Hell of a singer. The guy's got pipes. He's got the right look. We brought him in.
Steve sent me demos of the band he was in at the time, Aslan, and I was blown away.
Dream of the day when we'll all live in peace.
Steve actually got the gig with AngelragE by singing me an Italian aria. You know, he came in and sang Fight the Devil for me, and that was all well and good, but I explained to him that what I wanted to do with AngelragE was to blend operatic vocals with heavy metal, death metal vocals. When AngelragE truly became a band is when I got a phone call from my buddy Matt Rutherford. We had played together in Lunatics on Parole, and we had been friends for several years. And he called me up and told me he had left Lunatics on Parole and asked me if I still needed a drummer. And I'll tell you something, man, that was about the closest thing to a miracle in my life.
I'd been on hiatus from playing drums for a while. Gar and I, mutual friends, good buddies, got along great. He said, come on, man, come play. So I listened to some demos and came into the studio and we jammed away. We had a good time doing it.
So Matt and I started rehearsing at the Sound Arena where I was working at the time. And we started looking for a bass player. He and I were at the rehearsal studio every week, and Matt was crucial to a lot of the parts on Omega.
Gar and I kind of click together. You got to, in a band, you got to click and have a buddy and be brothers to get along. And it worked out pretty well with Gar and I. We wrote some new tunes. It was working out pretty well.
Steve used to fly in about once a month and rehearse with Matt and I. Before we settled on Jonah Lewis, my friend Deborah Roberts also came down and auditioned for the bass spot and nailed it. And I thought she would have been great in AngelragE, but Steve and Matt thought we should keep looking. And that I was really disappointed at that. I still think that was a mistake. I think we should have gone ahead with Deborah. But you know, hindsight is 20/20. So we were looking for a bass player for a really long time, and finally I got an answer on one of my ads from a guy named Jonah Lewis, and he came in and auditioned. Jonah looked like one of us, he sounded like one of us, and he fit in perfectly at first. We had one really great rehearsal with all four of us, and it looked like I had found my dream band. Incredible lineup. The problems with Jonah started pretty quickly. He would show up 20 minutes late to an hour rehearsal because he needed to stop at Starbucks. And then he would want to take 10 minutes to pray.
Hell of a bass player, good rhythm. We were pretty tight as bass and percussion as far as our groove. Where it didn't groove was we didn't have that brother capacity coming together like I was talking about earlier. It just, something wasn't clicking.
At the time, there were some investors that were scoping us out. And the problem was that they loved the original demos that I played and sang everything on, but they weren't crazy about the way the band was performing the music. And they were putting a lot of pressure on me to replace certain members of the band, which I refused to do. The last time we played together in 2005, I had booked 2 hours in a showcase room with the intent of having the investor stop by and take a look. So Jonah shows up an hour late. An hour late. for a 2-hour rehearsal in the most expensive room in the fucking studio. So we start playing, and things are tense.
On 4, attitude needs to be good. All right, ready?
By the time Jonah showed up, I was pretty disgusted at the whole situation. Steve was still reading the lyrics.
I was just like, I couldn't remember that first word when I look at it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I know you've only got a year.
And I remember looking up and seeing the face of one of the investors in the little window in the studio. And he didn't even come in. He just looked at me and shook his head and left. I never even told the band about that because I didn't see the point. I mean, it was clear it was over anyway, you know. So we went back to my apartment and hung out for a while, watched the video. Everybody was pretty quiet. I don't think any of us were really impressed with what went on that day. And then Steve asked if he could talk to me, and we went outside, and he told me, man, I don't know if I'm the right voice for AngelragE. We both knew it, but I had my heart set on Steve Braun being the lead singer for AngelragE, you know. It just wasn't working out. I mean, we kept trying to change the songs to fit Steve's voice, and they just weren't working. I mean, we weren't doing each other any favors, you know. Steve is a world-class singer, and Steve sounds great with every band he's ever sung with, except AngelragE. There was just something that did not mix.
Over time, we could have made it work, but the four of us just couldn't really get along. We weren't a tight-knit group like a band should be. And we played a showcase. We put some demos together. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time doing it. But when it comes down to AngelragE, the vision is really Gar's vision. I love to be a part of that vision. And I'd like to again in the future. It was good times.
I was heartbroken after that last showcase, and I really didn't know what to do. So I wasn't calling anybody, but to be fair, they weren't calling me either. And everybody just kind of moved on to other things, you know. I didn't touch a guitar for 2 fucking years after that. Matt went back to his old band, Swig. Steve recorded 2 amazing albums with an Italian progressive metal band called Ashent. And Jonah wound up playing bass for a well-known Christian rock band called Sinner, which was a perfect situation, you know, for everybody. So at that point, I was confronted with the decision of, you know, do I try and preserve the anonymity that we enjoyed as, you know, the archangels of metal, or do I make our names public and promote my band members' new projects? I chose to do the latter. So on the website, you know, I wasn't ready to replace them. So what I did was artwork this Stone Angel looking facade over our faces and changed our names.
I can't remember the exact day or time or exactly even how I came to hear about AngelragE. What I do remember is ending up on their website and reading the story about one of the members who got into a really bad car accident and had passed away. The story got really weird the more I read about the article and everything. You know, couldn't find the body and all this stuff. Well, needless to say, the story really affected me in a weird, deep way. I felt really bad for the family members who had suffered this loss. So I commented on the website my condolences to the band, to the family. I ended up a few days later getting a response back from the band, and I was surprised to learn that the story was just that, a story. While there was indeed an accident, it was a way to kill off the character that member had played. And seeing how bad I was affected by it and everything, they got in contact with me. And I ended up talking with Garland for quite a long time, and we've been friends ever since. I've supported AngelragE the entire, ever since. I have every album that they've released. I play them on my radio show, internet radio show, Metal for Christ. Every once in a while, Garland will show up in the chat room during the live show, and we'll sit there and chat while I'm playing the live show. But that was how I came to be involved with and support AngelragE.
I had this album pretty much recorded, and I felt I had to at least get it out, Our bass player, Jonah Lewis, made kind of an offhanded comment on Facebook saying, maybe we should do a little reunion. And I didn't know if he was serious or not, but I contacted Steve and Matt and just asked them, how would you feel about doing a song? And they both were down with it. I recorded the song very quickly, and I think I had it in their hands within a week. And nobody did anything with it. Matt was in the process of moving from LA to Brawley, California, and he has a family too, and he had his hands full as well. So the timing was not great. I wasn't hearing from anybody, and then Jonah kind of disappeared and made himself very hard to find. So that was the end of the AngelragE reunion. For those of you wondering what happened to the reunion of the original lineup, that's what happened. It was history basically repeating itself. I hate to say it, but it's true. For those of you wondering why I took such a long break after the release of Omega, my son was born right around that time, and honestly I just wanted to take some time and enjoy my family and just be there and be present.
We need this man as inebriated as he is. This is my bro car, and we're gonna do some fucking deal, man, on the silver motherfucking. Who knows, man on the Silver Mountain? Everybody fucking knows that song.
To be honest, I wasn't sure if I ever was going to do another AngelragE album. Eventually, I just had to. time to time, people ask about the reunion, you know, if there's any chance it could still happen. I've always kept the door open to the members of the band, and I'm on good terms with everybody. But at this point, I have to say I don't see it happening. I would work with Steve again, and Matt will be the drummer for AngelragE until he chooses not to be. But Jonah was a problem from the moment he came into the band. He was the reason that the reunion didn't go off in 2010, and I can't see it going any differently. You know, I really would have to say no. No. I'm not going to put myself through that again. I wanted to do a video that had a narrative element to it. I didn't want to just have it be me playing guitar and singing. I wanted there to be a story to it. And I thought, you know, I've always been a fan of disaster movies anyway, and it would be really cool to make a video that was like a mini disaster movie. There are multiple layers of reality within the video. I don't want to go too deep into that, but to give you an example, the viewer is left to decide, you know, how much of what you're seeing is this girl's nightmare compared to reality. And that I'd rather not spell out. I'd kind of like to leave that for you to figure out. I started filming in September of 2016 is when I filmed the vocals. I did some reshoots in October that I ended up not using because they didn't really add anything to what I already had. I filmed some bass parts which I did not use. For those of you wondering why there is no footage of bass in here, because I played all the instruments, and to be honest, my bass technique is not that great, nor my bass that good looking, and I just felt it would be kind of redundant. So I decided to just show me singing and playing guitar and leave it at that. You know, I didn't want to just have it be me playing guitar and singing, so I decided to just show me singing and playing guitar and leave it at that. You know. The guitar parts I filmed in February of 2017, right before I left Woodland Hills. It was one of literally the last things I did before I left. This video almost didn't get made. We moved from Woodland Hills to Simi Valley in the spring of 2017, and I really didn't think I had enough footage.
If only I could have foreseen.
The crazy thing about this video is that I shot and edited all my parts on my iPhone over the course of a year around homeschooling my son. It was a very, very exhausting year, but I really wanted to do at least one music video for AngelragE, and I felt, you know, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. I just felt like it's kind of now or never. I'm not real thrilled with how I look in the video, but, you know, one thing I learned in my car accident is if you wait for the perfect time, you know, that may never come, and it usually doesn't come. You have to go out and do what you're going to do in life, even if it isn't the perfect time. I hope you've enjoyed this little peek behind the scenes, and thank you guys for watching the video, for liking and sharing. I fucking love you guys. You rock. Ever since the beginning with AngelragE, I was veering into metalcore territory. There really wasn't a word for it back then, but it was all about the contrast between, you know, delicate, beautiful parts and, you know, crushingly heavy, brutal parts. And this lineup is fully capable of realizing that vision that I had, you know, all those years ago. So I'm really looking forward to working with these guys, and so far everything has been great. The band is firing on all cylinders in a way that the original lineup never did, unfortunately.
Gestapo police, you will see when they're kicking down your
When AngelragE truly became a band is when I got a phone call from my buddy Matt Rutherford. We had played together in Lunatics on Parole, and we had been friends for several years. And he called me up and told me he had left Lunatics on Parole and asked me if I still needed a drummer. And I'll tell you something, man, that was about the closest thing to a miracle in my life.
In a band, you got to click and have a buddy and be brothers to get along. And it worked out pretty well with Gar and I.
He and I were at the rehearsal studio every week, and Matt was crucial to a lot of the parts on Omega.
Played a showcase. We put some demos together. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time doing it. But when it comes down to AngelragE, the vision is really Gar's vision. I love to be a part of that vision, and I'd like to again in the future. It was good times.
The duo reunited in 2017, adding vocalists Nancy Carpenter and Sean Peelan as well as bassist Michael Courtois. Trees announced that the band's next release, Heresy, would be an ambitious multimedia event, with tracks being released one at a time accompanied by music videos and behind-the-scenes documentaries. A short clip of the band rehearsing a previously unheard track, Paragon Meadows, displayed a level of sophistication only hinted at on Omega, with Carpenter's haunting operatic voice contrasted by Peelan's vicious death metal vocals. The group released several brief behind-the-scenes videos as Trees wrote the new album. Also teased was the long-awaited release of the graphic novel Genesis, a violent semi-autobiographical tale introducing the AngelragE superhero character. Priest also filmed a short teaser trailer for a live-action film that was to be accompanied by a soundtrack album.
Boston. I met Garland Treese about a year ago on Facebook. It was one of those networking things, and we didn't really talk much, how that goes. And
I noticed she had a music page. I didn't really think a lot about it at first. Everybody on the internet is a singer or an actor or an Instagram model or a poet or a painter or some fucking thing. The first few that she posted didn't really catch my attention, but she posted a cover of The Rose by Bette Midler. And I thought, okay, let's see what you got. So I checked out her page, and I was impressed. I was impressed with the detail she puts into her singing. Her pitch, her enunciation. She doesn't use vibrato as a crutch like a lot of singers do. If it's there, it's well placed and well timed. And that kind of stuff gets my attention. I was impressed with the audacity of her song choices. I was impressed with the range of genres that she covers. So I was a little surprised because she clearly hadn't been at it that long, a couple of years, and since she put herself out there.
one night I was talking to a friend of mine. I had done something with another band, did another project with another band, and I went to a few rehearsals and did one gig, and it didn't work out. So I was kind of bummed about it, and I was, bitching to her, and she's like, you know what, another door will open, you'll see. And lo and behold, in comes Garland Treese, sent me a message on Facebook, and he asked me if I would be interested in singing for AngelragE.
Shortly after I checked out her page, I saw a post that she made that she had parted ways with her band. And I wrote to her immediately and asked her to be in AngelragE. I didn't even ask her to audition, I just asked her to be in the band.
I had heard his music before, and I was very interested. The older stuff is kind of heavy, but the song he sent me, Paragon Meadows, it's amazing. The melodies are just beautiful. The composition of the whole song, the back and forth, with me singing female vocals, it tells a story, and it's an amazing, amazing song. And I think it's going to be a hit, and I am really honored that he asked me to be part of it.
There are a few bands with whom our history is so intertwined that it would be difficult to tell our story without mentioning them. One of those bands is a Pantera tribute from Los Angeles called Domination 101. I first met them when I was working at Sound Arena Studios, and we became friends, a great bunch of guys. If I was to sum up our relationship in one word, it would be fun. Always a good time with those guys. Usually involving liquor and fireworks of some sort. Eventually, they asked me to do their website, and I went on to manage them. So very tight relationship with Domination 101 for many years.
I love Gar's work. I was lucky enough to meet him when I was playing bass for the Pantera tribute band, Domination 101, and had many great experiences working with him. He helped us on our webpage and did some incredible work. Very creative in everything he does. And I appreciate the ability to be able to continue to work with him. And I think you have some excellent new music to look forward to, so keep watching.
I'm honored and thrilled to have Mike in the band. He's an amazing bass player and a great guy. Both he and his wife, Christine, very nice people, very down to earth. And, when I asked him, I thought he was going to say no. He's a very busy guy, and I was just so surprised and thrilled when he said yes.
Gar and I have been talking about collaborating for quite a while. I've always brought it up, we've always brought it up, but unfortunately it never happened the way we wanted it to, because he was always busy doing his thing. I was always busy doing mine, whether it was From the Vomit or doing my Rust in Peace tribute, or just trying to do something and keep busy, or even just busy with my natural life as well as he. And eventually it just came to be where he hit me up and was like, Sean, let's do this now. Let's quit talking about it and let's do it. And my response was, cheers. I've always wanted to work with Gar. I've always wanted to work with AngelragE. I've always enjoyed what he writes and what he does. I've always respected it thoroughly. And I've always thought I could be at least a semi-valuable asset. I do remember hearing some of it at Gar's place when he lived in North Hollywood, and it was pretty rocking. And I offered up my I guess you could call them talents.
Sean actually came in and did vocals for 2 songs on Omega. He did vocals for Epiphany and Blood, and he did vocals for Finger of God. The reason that they didn't end up on the finished CD, in retrospect, is kind of silly and maybe a little petty. He would have been the only other musician on the CD, other than myself. And I felt, as did, the people close to me that expressed an opinion about it, that it would be more impressive for me to put out a CD where I had played and sang everything, rather than to have, a guest singer on one part on 2 songs. It would be more of a distraction. But, in retrospect, I just think that's stupid. I don't think it would have really detracted from it. And, there are a lot of artists that do, that have a guest singer on a song or 2. So, I regret that, but the situation has been rectified because now he's singing with the band. So, and that should have happened a long time ago.
I think that would sound really nice.
And that people can actually see, I can go bam, bam.
Yeah.
Where they know I'm not. a 2-track vocalist.
In December of 2014, I got a phone call from my old buddy Mark. And he told me that they were putting together an all-star jam for January of 2015 and asked me if I wanted to be part of it. My first instinct was to say no. I hadn't been on stage in 10 years since the last time I played with AngelragE. So, I wasn't sure I could pull it off. He twisted my arm a little bit. He strongly encouraged me to do it. And eventually I said yeah. So January 17th of 2015, I was back on stage. Mark called me up to the stage. He let me use his full Randall stack and a brand new Dimebag Razorback guitar. Held it in the air with the strap up. So all I had to do was step into it, put the pick in my hand, patted me on the back and said, "Have fun, brother." And I'll tell you, man, that was one of the nicest things anybody ever did for me. The caliber of talent on that stage was incredible. I mean, literally, members of some of my very favorite bands from LA. And it was just such an honor to be on stage with them. And I'm just so grateful to Mark for putting that together. So here we are. The original singer for Domination 101, Sean Pilon, is now singing with AngelragE. The final bass player for Domination 101, Michael Courtois, is now playing bass for AngelragE. And without Mark, the guitar player from Domination 101, getting me back out there on stage, I don't know if I ever would have come back with new AngelragE. I mean, being on stage again really just kind of put the fire in my blood. It was good for me to see that I still had it. I was still a viable rock and roll animal on stage, So, I mean, without that band, the present lineup of AngelragE would not exist.
It's just been a crazy ride, this whole thing, and it's just, I've done voiceovers for video games. Just this whole thing has opened so many doors for me, and the biggest door that has opened is my part in AngelragE, my position, and I am just really thrilled to be part of something again, and this is just a wonderful opportunity. And Garland is a great guy. He's funny. I really can't wait to get going. These songs are amazing. And all I can say is, like Garland says, just let the music speak for itself. And I think this is going to be something really epic. And I hate that word, but yeah, epic.
Ever since the beginning with AngelragE, I always wanted a contrast between a clean singer and a death metal singer. And, I finally have that with Nancy and Sean. This version of AngelragE is going to totally obliterate any memory that anybody has of the original lineup. She's been great. I mean, it's been great to work with her. She's been a tremendous addition to AngelragE, and we're ready to go out and kick some major ass.
You know, it's on.
In March of 2019, lead vocalist Nancy Carpenter flew from Boston, Massachusetts to Los Angeles, California and spent 10 days sightseeing with guitarist Garland Triest. The pair were spotted having an intimate dinner at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and later that evening attended a Head PE show at the Whiskey A Go Go. Inexplicably, the other band members made no attempt to meet with her during this time.
Against my skin, the salty spray.
In addition to music, Triest also pursued a career in voice acting, being featured in films including As Above So Below, No Escape, Krampus, Ghostbusters Answer the Call, and along with The God for Two Worlds, as well as the CW television network's Nancy Drew series in Season 2's The Scourge of the Forgotten Rune. Triest worked to finish writing and recording the new album, he received devastating news. Drummer Matt Rutherford, embroiled in an acrimonious divorce and custody battle for his 2 children, was unable to participate in recording and encouraged the guitarist to bring in another drummer for the sessions, with the door open for his future involvement. Triest brought in his old friend and bandmate Dean Goldswag, with whom he had a long and successful history of working together since the 1980s.
This is Garland Triest coming to you from Chateau des Anges, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for checking out our behind the scenes videos. And I really wanted to introduce you to this new lineup. I'm so excited to be working with these guys. It's an amazing band, and we're going to have some great songs for you to listen to. And so far 2019 is coming up all AngelragE, so stay tuned.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Triste broke his wrist falling backwards down a flight of stairs after learning of the death of one of his closest friends, a devastating blow to the grieving guitarist, who admitted he was terrified not only of the prospect of never playing guitar again, but of having to go to medical facilities for therapy during a pandemic. While not a familiar name to AngelragE fans, drummer Steve Blank was a very important figure behind the scenes, regularly present at rehearsals and offering financial support to facilitate the recording of the Omega album.
Hey guys, just checking in to say hi. Hopefully you're all doing alright out there. I know this is rough on everyone. Hopefully it'll be over soon, so hang in there.
In April of 2020, fresh out of his cast, the guitarist recorded 2 new videos, a guitar tutorial, and a cover of What a Wonderful World for Joey Ramone's Virtual Birthday Bash. While trying to maintain a positive presence online for his fans, behind the scenes, he was struggling with depression as his life unraveled, and a dark new persona emerged as he battled his demons. In 2020, amid the global lockdown, Triste learned that his niece, Amanda Piatti, had been murdered on July 4th, his birthday. Chicago police, overwhelmed with protests and riots, could offer little help, and her killer, a known gang member, is still at large. But it was the departure of lead singer Nancy Carpenter, a loss he described as insurmountable, and the shocking death of original drummer Matt Rutherford at only 42 years old, that ended AngelragE and led to Triste abandoning social media and disappearing from public view until his death. On July 13, 2020, Triste posted to his official Instagram account for the last time. As friends, family and fans tried in vain to reach him, the elusive guitarist withdrew from public view, living out his last days in total isolation. On the evening of August 13, 2021, his family found him unresponsive at his desk, bringing to a tragic end the long and storied saga of AngelragE.